Hello and welcome to discussion today on Rajya Sabha TV. I am Tina Jha. A victim of air pollution can now seek compensation, the NGT Principal Bench in New Delhi has said. The bench gave this order in response to 3 petitions in which it was pointed out that despite an NGT ban on firecrackers during Diwali in NCR and also in cities where the air quality index is poor or worse, people burst crackers at abandon, which not only worsened air quality but also aggravated the coronavirus pandemic. A 4-judge NGT bench ruled that any victim of pollution can now approach the District Magistrate for compensation by showing evidence of individual damage and also who is responsible for it. It directed all district magistrates in the country to ensure that banned firecrackers are not sold and also asked them to recover compensation from the violators with or without a complaint. Also in the fresh directive, the NGT has said that there would be a total ban on the sale and use of all kinds of firecrackers during the COVID-19 pandemic in the NCR and also in cities and towns in the country where the ambient air quality falls under the poor and above category. However, during Christmas and New Year, green crackers can be used from 11:55 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. only at places where air quality is moderate or below. And other than specified festivals, prior permission of the district magistrates of the area will also be required for use of crackers for a limited period, which will be given having regard to air quality. So on discussion today, we will discuss in detail the NGT order on seeking compensation for air pollution and how significant a move it is towards fixing accountability to this grave problem of air pollution. Joining me on the program are 2 special guests. Let me introduce them to you. We have with us Dr. Shamli Singh. She's Assistant Professor, Center for Environment and Climate Change, IIPA, and Mr. Balindu Shekhar, he's Advocate, NGT. I welcome both distinguished panelists on this edition of discussion today. Mr. Balindu Shekhar, I pointed out certain points from the NGT directive. If you could throw some more light and explain to us in detail what this NGT directive means.
The order passed by NGT on 1st December 2020. It is primarily regarding banning of firecrackers during COVID period. Because one thing I must tell your every viewers that similar petition is already pending before the Honorable Supreme Court in Arjun Gopal case, where Honorable Supreme Court is already seized with the matter. However, in this very case, which is pending in NGT, where this order has been passed, here NGT is only examined for the impact of firecrackers on COVID virus or COVID issue. So this very case is regarding the correlation between firecrackers and coronavirus. So in this matter, tribunal has said that till this COVID pandemic is here, all sorts of firecrackers would remain banned, except certain window, which you have already said, that in moderate cities where AQI level is good or moderate, their firecrackers can be allowed, subject to condition that they will use only green crackers, and rest all crackers will be banned. Apart from that, NGT has also said that individuals, whosoever is being affected by this firecrackers, can seek compensation from the individual who is perpetuating or who is committing such violation. And for that matter, every district magistrate has been empowered to collect damages from every such offenders.
So, of course, severe air pollution is a grave violation, in fact, of the fundamental right of life. So, I mean, is it the first of this kind that the NGT has given a directive of this kind where individuals can seek compensation for bad air quality?
Certainly, this I must say that this is first and foremost. This is for the first time something has happened. But at the same time, I must say that similar compensation is already there for noise pollution. But there, NGT has not formulated that whether PM is entitled to award any such compensation to individual or not. But the quantification of damage which has been used here in the instant case for air pollution, this has been only reproduced from the policy which has already formulated by CPCB for noise pollution. So that thing has only been is being used for air pollution.
Okay. So getting Dr. Shamli Singh into the discussion now. Professor, what do you think of this particular move by the NGT? Your particular views on this directive as to how significant this is, especially in terms of fixing accountability?
Beyond doubt, this is a very, very significant move and a very welcome move, though very late and very little, because we yet have to see because as was told by Shri Bhalenduji, that this is not for the first time that there have been such directives, but definitely fixing an accountability in itself is for the very first time, which has been directed by NGT. And as far as I see the entire scenario of the pandemic and air pollution, there are studies which show that the mortality due to the COVID-19, the deaths would be 15% more. Global deaths would be more. And looking back into the situation back home, especially in Delhi NCR, where the condition, be it with pandemic or without pandemic, every year we reel under the same pressure. Come winters and all Delhites especially and people living in NCR, we gasp for a fresh breath of air. So definitely it's a welcome move. But the problem is that how is NGT going to ensure that the accountability is being fixed and the people are actually going to get their due, which is because as far as I read the NGT ruling, that it states that the complainant has to prove, but there are hardly any epidemiological studies. As far as such studies, they are very long, the duration of such studies, they are long rated. And so how is a person going to claim that this particular morbidity is because of the firecrackers? So there are so many loopholes which are attached to it, but definitely this is a welcome move, which will over a period of time, it will get fine-tuned also.
Definitely. So we'll come to the challenges one by one. Coming back to you, Mr. Shekhar, obviously the rule looks very, very good on paper, and if implemented effectively, it's going to be a significant one. But then when we talk about challenges, especially in implementation at local levels, it's going to be a huge hurdle. So has the NGT come up with any solutions or identified some problems which could potentially come up?
Yes, when you will see the order, when you see the entire order, you also will find that in this very order, they have properly examined that aspect, and that is why they have mentioned that Air Quality Monitoring Committee, which NGT had already suggested evac on 8th of October 2018, where every state was required to formulate an Air Quality Monitoring Committee, which was supposed to be a 6-member committee, where the Department of Environment, Transport, Industries, Urban Development, Agriculture, and the Secretary of every respective state pollution control board were required to be the member of that. And in this very order, NGT has said that every such direction need to be looked after by this very committee, which is supposed to be in every state. So it is not that very order cannot be implemented or cannot be supervised, because certainly the immediate power has been given to the district magistrate. But at the same time, this very committee has been asked to look after or to formalize or to harmonize the implementation of this very order.
Okay. So, sir, when we talk about evidence, of course, individuals have been given this right to prove and provide evidence before the district magistrate and seek compensation. So, a very valid point made by Dr. Singh that, how will an individual prove? What kind of evidence will be acceptable before a DM that this particular morbidity has taken place because of this person's irresponsible act of causing air pollution? So, what kind of evidence will be acceptable, sir?
See, certainly it is very initial stage, and everything, as Shamli ma'am has already said, that many things need to be streamlined, and which will certainly be done in due course. But at the same time, at this juncture, I can only say, because it is yet to be unfolded in proper sense. So I can say only at this juncture that if I just take example that if someone is affected by any firecrackers or have been burned due to that firecrackers, he can easily produce some medical certificate, medical documentation certificate by the doctors or hospital certificate. So all these are very valid documents, and that on the basis of that, they can individual can easily establish their claim that certainly I have been affected because of this. Because medical report will certainly indicate that. So based on that, DM can certainly gauge the quantum and what the amount can be given to them.
Okay, coming back to you, Dr. Singh, what are the other challenges that you see? He said, of course, there are proofs from doctors that can be submitted before the district magistrate, and then it will be up to the DM to cross-examine and then provide adequate compensation. But what are the other challenges that you see in implementing this particular directive by the NGT?
Yeah, there are a lot of other challenges besides the one which I've already eliminated. See, as far as Mr. Shekhar was discussing about, there'll be local, air pollution, air quality monitoring stations. But if you look at the current status of the locations, there are 793 locations. And if you talk of the ambient air quality, continuous ambient air quality monitoring stations, they are somewhere around 219 stations at the moment in 123 cities. But if you look at the present scenario of India, there are 4,000 plus cities and there are 740 districts. So if you look at the mapping of, like, let's say, even if we pick up one district each, there is hardly any air quality monitoring station in even in one of the district headquarters. So I am not talking about the continuous ambient, which is the real-time one. Even the local manual stations are there, which have not been set up as yet. Though if you look at the Air Pollution Act, which is of 1981, and almost 39-40 years have gone. So there is a need and there is a challenge to see to it that how fast can the Central Pollution Control Board and the State Pollution Control Boards and the other aligned, agencies, they can gear up and they can, come to tune, they can buckle up so as to see that, yes, the air quality monitoring stations are there. And only in the same breath, I would like to add that they should not be there as a, as a pillar, not doing anything exactly. There should be a function, because most of the time when we also go for evaluations, we've seen that most of these entities or most of these air quality monitoring stations, they are not functioning properly. So there has to be seen that the implementation is proper, the equipments are procured properly, they are functional. So these all challenges are definitely per se in the ambit, and with the Central Pollution Control Board almost working, if we and you, we celebrate Diwali, but every year we have seen that the entire staff, the entire scientist staff of Central Pollution Control Board, of course with NGT, they are on toes and they have been working really hard. But when it comes to, the real outcome of the same, I think somewhere accountability, it's the right time. It has to be fixed, and it is a very, very welcome move. Maybe if not this year, maybe in the years to come, people and the authorities will realize that it is high time something has to be done. Otherwise, we're all going to, breathe in this noxious fume of poison.
Okay, so how much of it is going to happen? That's for all of us to see in the coming years. But coming back to you, Mr. Shekhar, one challenge that comes to my mind that perhaps could be a problem in practically implementing this directive could be that, when you give, it's a good thing that you have, you expect people to participate, because at the end of the day, air pollution is a problem faced by everyone. And definitely, public should also be accountable towards it. They should be responsible towards it. But when you give individuals the power to prove evidence and seek compensation at the doorstep of the district magistrate, you will see hundreds and thousands of people queuing up outside the DM's office seeking compensation. So is it in a way piling up work of the district magistrate and not in a way facilitating or providing the support to the DM first before coming up with something like this?
District magistrate is already having adequate infrastructure, adequate setup to examine and to look after all these things.
Okay.
And that is why such responsibility can easily be given to them. And more so, whatever requirement they need, due course, can easily be supplemented at later stage.
Okay.
But merely because of the reason that district magistrate would be burdened with some more work, that cannot be a defense for not doing the thing which is really needed at this stage for everyone.
And the other aspect to it could be that, when individuals start taking interest, that could actually lessen the collective responsibility that we all want other organizations also to take. In a way, you are just fixing accountability at one level and perhaps not considering the other levels at which it has to be sought?
See, the thing is that if government setup becomes serious in implementing all this kind of direction, then automatically message starts spreading everywhere. And slowly and gradually, people also realized the need for doing all those things. And with the passage of time, something automatically gets streamlined. So I think if authorities would be really serious in implementing this kind of direction, and if all the needed infrastructure or needed support, this would be there for them to do the thing on the ground, I think in due course, everyone would certainly be benefited out of it.
Okay, points taken. Another thing that I want to take your views about, Mr. Shekhar, is that, at individual levels, it will be easier for people to go and complain to the district magistrate about somebody being responsible for their, being affected because of air pollution. But what happens when there are bigger parties involved, there are bigger corporations which are involved, industries, where there couldn't be evidence which is, so on the face that you can show to the district magistrate and hold that particular organization responsible? What happens in such a scenario? How is the district magistrate supposed to cross-examine and ensure that adequate compensation is given to that individual, even if the other party happens to be a bigger organization? See, even for the bigger organization, this very order take care of all those aspects as well, because if the violation is taking place by any Bharat or any such public function, and for first violation, the compensation would be 20,000, and for second violation, it would be 40,000. And in case still the individuals go for another violation, then the compensation would drastically go to 1 lakh, and at the same time, sealing of the premises. So this is how this order distinguishes between individual violations and collective violations. Okay.
And apart from other aspects which you just highlighted, for that matter, every state is already having state pollution control board. So if there is a massive such pollution take place, then for that matter, there is already pollution control board who are authorized and who are supposed to look after all this.
Okay.
So the state has all these facilities, all these mechanisms. It is all because of the reason that if all these authorities, officials just becomes, they just need to be more serious in implementing every law which we already have. And I think if everyone becomes just serious in doing the thing in the right way and in the right manner, in consonance with the law as well as various directions, automatically everything will be streamlined.
Okay. Dr. Singh, so now that we are here and we've established that this is a welcome step, it's going to fix accountability at different levels, and also people will be responsible towards, this particular problem that we're all facing. But do you agree that if the entire focus comes around compensation, it will defeat the larger purpose of tackling air pollution? And it's a problem which is not city specific. There are many, many cities and towns in the country where the air quality is worsening every year.
I totally agree that it should not be only seen as a punitive method or of abstracting or extracting compensation, because there can be too many naysayers also to this if we talk only in terms of getting the compensation, because though whenever you come up with a decision or a policy, at the outer face of it, it looks very clean and rosy. But when you go into actual implementation of the same, better said that it will be definitely going to have a lot of problems, because as I have said that it would not be very easy to prove that, okay, because of XYZ, I am being affected by a particular set of, air conditions because there are at times the same amount of pollution cannot cause the worsening harm because of the meteorological conditions. If the same thing happens in summer, then that person will not face those implications. But if it happens in winter conditions, when the conditions are very stable, the air is stable, the meteorological conditions are so that it aggravates the problem of pollution. So there has to be a lot of gradations in this. And definitely there are so many other good plans which have been come up in consultation with NGT and Ministry of Environment Forest, that there have been, the notification of GRAP, that is the Graded Action Response Plan. Then we had the green crackers. All these, initiatives of government of India through different agencies and ministries and line departments are there, which must also pick up, because it is not only the question we should come up out of this silo of only till the pandemic exists. I sincerely pray that the pandemic should go as fast as possible. But even if after the pandemic, the situation it'll prevail, especially in winters. So it has to be seen, in a broader vision, in a wider horizon, that something which has substantial implications must be done, and it must be seen that the problem is handled, and it has to be a sustainable solution for it, so as to fix the accountability, as we have seen in the graded response action plan. That is also big, but if you look at this history of that also, it was notified in 2017, and it has been implemented very late in 2020, that is on 15th of October. And environment and air pollution is such a subject. If you look at any facet of it, we cannot be, reactive. The time has gone. We have to be proactive to the solution, because till we gear up, the situation changes and it becomes, actually out of our hands. So the government and the agencies and the NGT and every individual has to be very, very active and proactive if we want a better place to live.
Perhaps.
Because we have very little time. Yeah.
And precisely, that's why, this is a welcome step by the NGT. Mr. Shekhar, coming back to you again to get your perspective on, will there be any checks and balances? How will the NGT ensure that this directive is enforced in the right way as has been expected to?
For that matter only, this matter is still pending in court. On 31st March 2021, Central Pollution Control Board is required to furnish a detailed report about all the states, about the compliance of this report. Whoever would not apply this very order would be really be dealt very harshly by the Honorable NGT, because earlier also NGT has imposed very heavy costs like 20 crore, 30 crores penalty they have imposed upon even government agency or government authority. Here also, in case this order is not implemented, and in case the Pollution Control Board, the State Pollution Control Board or Central Pollution Control Board indicate in their report that this order has not been implemented because of A, B, C reason, then upon that NGT will certainly impose a very heavy cost upon every such individual whosoever has defied in implementing this.
Okay. Points taken. Dr. Shamli Singh, you pointed out, there are several steps, several initiatives taken at the state level, but at the center to tackle with air pollution. But since we are talking about individuals' rights to clean air and the NGT directive, which gives victims the right to seek compensation, if we also talk about the duties of individuals, what can individuals do to ensure that they participate in dealing or in curbing air pollution? How much of a role can be expected of the victims? What can they do?
Definitely, it is a very valid point, because unless the entire situation, the people at hand who are affected the most, they also have to be held accountable and responsible. Because see, if I am being a victim of air pollution, it is of course my neighbor who's burning that cracker. That is why I am getting affected by that particular problem. So there is an imperative need to see to it that how awareness, though there are a lot of awareness programs these days in schools, in colleges, and also in the resident welfare associations also, there is a lot of capacity building, there is a lot of capacitating. But as far as if it comes that if the people do not follow and if they do not fall in line, then I personally think that there should be some punitive, some legal action of, a fine should be imposed on the individual. There should be, though in this time, if we go back to the directives of the Delhi government, there was a fine. If you see somebody burning crackers, then if you dial 100, then definitely the police will come and impose the fine. But normally what has been seen is that people normally do not tend to go to that extent of calling police, because then you feel that they are your immediate neighbors. You don't want to do that. But there should be a sense of moral responsibility, and the moral fabric has to be strengthened to see. And I think the responsibility lies on our youth, because it is they who have to be accustomed, and they are the ones who will be suffering the most out of this. So there has to be a plan of action in place so as to see that if somebody is not agreeing or abiding by the set rules, the social norms and practices, there should be maybe something of name and shame. Maybe you can provide certain incentives to the occupants of the particular resident welfare association. Some small social, if you can attach the social stigmatization can be done. Maybe this can be one of the soft measures to see. If still the problem persists, then the legal action should be taken.
Definitely. So, very well articulated that with every right there is a responsibility and people have to take care of that as well. One concluding remark from you, Mr. Balendu Shekhar. Over the last few minutes, we've spoken of a lot of challenges as well. Any suggestions, any solutions that you have in mind?
I can only say that pollution is not something which you need to learn from somewhere else, because it is just individual contribution as well. And if I am serious and if I remain attentive that because of me, no pollution may take place either of air pollution or water pollution or noise pollution, certainly I can contribute a lot to what my neighbors as well as to my society. And similarly, if everyone start seeing their own, that whether they are doing something good or not, such thing can easily be taken care of.
Definitely. So with that remark, I'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of Discussion Today. Thank you to both my guests for joining us on the program this evening and putting things into perspective for us as well. Pleasure having you on the program. So that's it from us on Discussion Today. You can also watch our program on YouTube and send us your feedback and suggestions as well. We'll be back same time tomorrow with another subject and a different set of panelists. Thank you very much for your time.